Welcome back to Can't Be True, the channel where we dive into the weird, the mysterious, and the downright unexplainable. I'm Tim, and today we're stepping into a topic that's fascinated humanity for centuries: time travel. Is it possible, or is it just the stuff of science fiction? Well, what if I told you there are real-life stories, documented accounts of people who claim to have slipped through time itself? From a man who appeared in the 1950s New York dressed like he walked out of the 1800s, to two women who say they stumbled into the court of Marie Antoinette, these stories will make you question everything you know about reality. So grab a snack, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's explore the most bizarre time travel stories ever recorded. Stick around until the end. I've got a bonus story that might just blow your mind. Before we dive in, let's set the stage with a quick look at what science says about time travel. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, time isn't as fixed as we think. It can bend and stretch, especially near massive objects like black holes or at speeds close to the speed of light. Theoretically, if you could travel faster than light or create a wormhole, a kind of tunnel through space-time, you might be able to jump to the past or future. But here's the catch: no one's ever done it, at least not officially. Yet throughout history, there are strange accounts of people who seem to have defied the laws of physics, slipping through time without a DeLorean or a TARDIS. Are these stories proof of time travel or just clever hoaxes? Let's find out. Our first story takes us to New York City in 1950. It's a busy evening in Times Square with cars honking and neon lights flashing. Suddenly a man appears in the middle of the street, seemingly out of nowhere. He's dressed in old-fashioned clothes, a top hat, a long frock coat, and mutton chop sideburns straight out of the 1800s. Before anyone can react, a taxi swerves, and tragically, the man is struck and killed. The police arrive, and when they search his body, they find some bizarre clues. In his pocket is a copper token for a Fifth Avenue saloon that no one's heard of, a bill for the care of a horse and carriage wash dated 1876, and a business card identifying him as Rudolph Fentz Sr. Even stranger, his wallet contains crisp $70 in old banknotes, also from the 1870s. The police are baffled. They check the address on the business card, but the building no longer exists. Then they dig into missing persons records and find something chilling. In 1876, a man named Rudolph Fentz, aged 29, vanished without a trace after leaving his home for a walk. The man killed in Times Square appears to be in his late 20s, matching the description perfectly. So, did Rudolph Fentz somehow travel 74 years into the future, only to meet a tragic end? The story gets even weirder. When investigators tracked down Fentz's family, they found his widow, who confirmed that her husband had disappeared in 1876. She also mentioned he was last seen wearing the exact same outfit described by the police. This story became an urban legend, often cited as proof of time travel. But there's a twist. In 2005, a researcher named Chris Aubeck discovered that the tale of Rudolph Fentz first appeared in a 1951 short story by Jack Finney, titled I'm Scared. The story was published in Collier's magazine, and over the years, it seems to have been mistaken for a real event, with details seeping into urban legend anthologies. So, while the Rudolph Fentz case might not be true, it's a perfect example of how time travel stories capture our imagination, and sometimes blur the line between fact and fiction. Let's move on to a story that's a bit more credible, and a lot more eerie. In August 1901, two English women, Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, were visiting the Palace of Versailles in France. Both were respected academics. Charlotte was the principal of St. Hugh's College at Oxford, and Eleanor was her colleague. They were touring the grounds when they decided to visit the Petit Trianon, a small chateau used by Marie Antoinette. As they walked, they got lost, and that's when things took a strange turn. The women later wrote that the atmosphere changed. They felt an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the air itself had become heavy. They noticed people around them dressed in 18th century clothing, men in tricorn hats, women in long dresses, and gardeners using old-fashioned tools. At one point, they encountered a woman sketching in a garden who they later believed was Marie Antoinette herself. The women claimed they had somehow slipped into the 1780s, right before the French Revolution. They even described seeing a bridge and a kiosk that no longer existed in 1901, but matched historical records from Marie Antoinette's time. When they finally found their way back to the main path, the modern world returned, and the strange feeling lifted. Charlotte and Eleanor were so convinced of their experience that they wrote a book about it in 1911 titled An Adventure under pseudonyms. The book caused a sensation, with some believing they had experienced a genuine time slip, a phenomenon where people temporarily move into the past or future. Skeptics, however, had leaned to other explanations. Some suggested the women had stumbled into a historical reenactment, though there is no record of one that day. Others proposed they experienced a shared hallucination, possibly due to exhaustion or the power of suggestion, since both were deeply interested in history. A more psychological theory points to a phenomenon called folie à deux, where two people share a delusion. But Charlotte and Eleanor stood by their story until their deaths, insisting they had walked into the past. What's fascinating is that their descriptions of the Petit Trianon included details, like the layout of the gardens, that weren't widely known in 1901 but were later confirmed by historians. So, were they time travelers, or did their imaginations get the better of them? I'll let you decide. Our next story is a bit more lighthearted, and it comes with photographic evidence. In 1941, a photo was taken at the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in British Columbia, Canada. The image shows a crowd of people dressed in typical 1940s attire, men in suits and fedoras, women in long dresses. But one person stands out. There's a young man in the crowd wearing modern sunglasses, a printed t-shirt, and holding what looks like a portable camera, items that wouldn't become common until decades later. He's been dubbed the time-traveling hipster, and the photo went viral in the early 2000s and 10s when it was rediscovered. Online forums exploded with theories. Some claimed he was a time traveler from the future, accidentally caught on camera. Others pointed out his casual posture and modern vibe, which seemed out of place for the 1940s. The story gained so much traction that it was even featured in a Day 2010 virtual museum exhibit called Their Past Lives Here, which is where the photo first caught public attention. But let's dig into the details. Skeptics have since debunked this one pretty thoroughly. The sunglasses he's wearing? They were available in the 1920s and 1930s, often used by pilots or people with eye conditions. The printed t-shirt? It looks like a sweater with a logo, possibly from a sports team, something that did exist in the 1940s. And the camera? It resembles a Kodak folding camera, which was popular at the time. So while the time-traveling hipster makes for a fun story, he's probably just a guy with a quirky sense of style for 1941. Still, it's easy to see why this photo sparked so much debate. It's a reminder of how our perception of the past can make even ordinary things seem extraordinary. Now let's travel to 1970s Liverpool, England, for a story that's less about evidence and more about a chilling first-hand account. In 1996, a man named Sean reported an experience that happened to him as a teenager. One day in the 1970s, Sean was walking down Bold Street, a busy shopping area in Liverpool, when he noticed something odd, and the street suddenly looked different. The cars were gone, replaced by horse-drawn carriages, and the shops had old-fashioned signs. People around him were dressed in 19th century clothing, women in long skirts and bonnets, men in top hats. Even the air smelled different, like coal smoke and horses. Sean said he felt a strange sensation, like he was in a dream, but he kept walking. He passed a shop that looked like a modern store he knew, but the sign read Cripps, a department store that had closed in the early 1900s. Inside, he saw women in Victorian dresses shopping for gloves. Panicked, Sean ran out of the store, and as he did, the modern world snapped back into place. Cars, noise, and 1970s fashion returned. Sean later learned that Bold Street is known for alleged time slips. Other people have reported similar experiences in the same area, including a woman in 2006 who claimed she saw 1940s cars and people while walking down the street. Some paranormal researchers believe Bold Street might be a time vortex, a place where the fabric of time is thinner, allowing people to slip into the past. Skeptics, of course, have a more grounded explanation. They suggest these experiences could be caused by stress, imagination, or even a neurological condition like temporal lobe epilepsy, which can cause vivid hallucinations. But for Sean and others who've experienced it, the memory feels all too real. Could Bold Street really be a hotspot for time travel? Or is it just a place that inspires overactive imaginations? Our final main story takes us to the realm of conspiracy theories, and a man who claims that he's been to the future. In 2003, a man named Andrew Carlssin made headlines after he was arrested for insider trading in the United States. Here's the wild part. Andrew turned an $800 investment into $350 million in just 2 weeks by making 126 high-risk stock trades, all of which paid off. When questioned by the FBI, Andrew allegedly confessed that he was a time traveler from the year 2256. He claimed he had traveled back to 2003 with knowledge of future stock market trends, which is how he made his fortune. According to a supposed article in the Weekly World News, a tabloid known for outlandish stories, Andrew offered to prove his story by sharing future events, like the location of Osama bin Laden and the cure for AIDS. But before he could be fully interrogated, he posted a $1 million bail and disappeared, never to be seen again. The story spread like wildfire online, with many pointing to it as evidence of time travel. But here's the catch. The Weekly World News is a satirical publication, famous for fake stories like Bat Boy and alien abductions. There's no record of Andrew Carlssin in any official FBI documents, and financial experts have pointed out that his stock trades, while impressive, could be explained by luck or market manipulation. Still, the idea of a time traveler playing the stock market is so tantalizing that the story continues to circulate, often presented as fact. It's a reminder of how much we want to believe in the impossible. Before we wrap up, I promised you a bonus story, and this one's a doozy. In 1935, a British Air Force pilot named Sir Victor Goddard was flying over an abandoned airfield in Jourdain, Scotland. The airfield was in disrepair with cattle grazing on the runway. As he flew overhead, he hit a strange storm. The sky turned an eerie yellow and his plane began to shake. Suddenly the storm cleared, and when he looked down, the airfield was completely transformed. It was bustling with activity. Mechanics in blue overalls were working on yellow planes, none of which matched the RAF standard silver aircraft of the 1930s. Confused, Goddard landed elsewhere and reported the incident. 4 years later, in 1939, the Jourdain airfield was reopened, and the RAF began painting their planes yellow and issuing blue overalls to mechanics, exactly as Goddard had described. Had he flown into the future during that strange storm? Goddard himself believed he had experienced a time slip, and he wrote about it in his 1975 book, Flight Towards Reality. Skeptics argue he might have been disoriented by the storm and imagined the details, or that he embellished the story years later, but Goddard's account remains one of the most famous time travel stories in aviation history, and it's hard to dismiss the eerie accuracy of his vision. So what do we make of these stories? Are they proof that time travel is real, or are they just the product of a human imagination, hoaxes, and coincidence? Science tells us that time travel, while theoretically possible, is far beyond our current technology. But these accounts remind us that the universe is full of mysteries we can't yet explain. Maybe time isn't as linear as we think. Maybe, just maybe, there are cracks in reality that let us glimpse the past or future. What do you think? Have you ever experienced a time slip, or do you know someone who has? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. If you enjoyed this dive into the bizarre world of time travel, give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more weird and wonderful content every week. Check out our playlist on unsolved mysteries for more stories that'll make you question reality. And as always, thanks for watching Can't Be True, where the impossible just might be possible. See you in the next video. Or maybe I'll see you in the past.